Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Breeze. Breezeway Productions The Breeze, where we bring you the latest in independent films and film festival news. And we have director-writer Karen Cho here with us today to talk about her film, Big Fight in Little Chinatown, playing at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. How are you, Karen?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. So tell me a little bit about the film that is in the festival this year.
Well, Big Fight in Little Chinatown, it's a film that looks at community resilience and resistance to the erasures of their Chinatown. So it's a film about endangered Chinatowns in North America, but
Mhm.
really looks at the kind of agency that the different communities have to kind of fight against various different gentrification pressures and other things that the community is facing.
Yeah. I see that you started off the film, the trailer, talking about the Chinatown that's in New York and that they were looking to build a jail there. Do you want to reflect of how this subject matter came to you to make the film?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm Canadian. I'm fifth generation Chinese Canadian on my father's side, and I have very deep family roots in both Montreal and Vancouver's Chinatowns.
Okay.
And the very first documentary film I ever made was a film called In the Shadow of Gold Mountain. It was about the Chinese Head Tax and Exclusion Act, and
Okay.
that film was filmed in some of those Chinatowns and also premiered in Chinatowns across Canada. So these
Okay.
Chinatowns, in a way, were communities that were very close to me and very dear to me. And fast forwarding, almost 20 years later, I could see, or I was concerned with how I could see that, a lot of these communities were in periods of decline or active erasure. So it was kind of the impetus or the idea for making Big Fight in Little Chinatown to really kind of ask these questions around what happens when these places of meaning and memory for a community um, become endangered and are erased. And
Yeah.
then at the very beginning of my research, I was actually in New York. I was at a gathering. It was called Coast to Coast Gathering for Chinatowns Against Displacement, and that was in March of 2020. So, after returning from this gathering, I met all these Chinatowns and these Chinatown organizers. Of course, came home to Montreal, and 3 days later, they shut down New York for COVID. So,
Sure did.
and we all know what happened after that.
Yeah.
Um, but thankfully, I had made some connections on the ground. That's how I met May Lam and Gary Lam, who are in the film, the owners of Wing on Woe, the porcelain store in New York. And because I had those relationships already, we could continue some of our conversations online. And actually, like the first 9 months of shooting the film, I wasn't allowed to even cross the border into the States. Vaccines weren't
Mm.
invented, all of these kind of things. So it
Right.
was actually May Lum who helped me to find a New York-based cinematographer. I had two main cinematographers on the film, one named Josh Frank, who was up in Canada with me, and then there was another one, Nate Brown, based in New York. And because Nate was actually in the family's bubble, he actually also worked at Wing on Woe. We were able to access, the family and the story during this period where, it was very precarious, even just on a health level of bringing outside people into your space, especially if you had seniors there.
Yeah. I see that there were a lot of cities that were involved in this. So you were able to get teams in each of the cities to do the interviews and the work. So you had like a web of connections emailing at the same time to make this subject matter complete for the film.
No, well, actually,
Yeah.
most of the time it was like it was a very intimate and small crew. So Nate, our cinematographer in New York, shot a lot of the stuff remotely, and I would talk with him on the cell phone, or we would be, working ahead of time. I would be emailing him questions or be there kind of on Zoom. But then once they opened up the borders and the vaccines and all that, like we could travel a bit more. So I had
Right
a,
on.
a small crew, of 3 to maximum 5 people, going to the different Chinatowns. I shot the New York stuff with Nate. There were just two of us, and even sometimes, it was myself with a camera, depending on the situation.
Right
So,
on.
but I guess the constraints of COVID also became strengths of the film because parts of the storytelling are it feels very intimate, and a lot of that is because we were a small crew. We kind of just melted into the background, and we had access to kind of personal spaces, just being one or two people.
Wow. So you were able to get it done over the time that was necessary. When the restrictions lifted, you got on the move and then you started doing things over here and you put it together to showcase all of these Chinatowns, which are currently basically fighting a war against, being gentrified or getting demolished or history forgotten. And each of the generations continue to fight. I found it interesting that you also said that this is a generational fight, every generation to fight for Chinatown. Do you see that the younger generation is taking the baton, so to say, and then defending Chinatown in each of these cities?
Yes, definitely. I would say that, the quote unquote save Chinatown movement is really in a kind of zeitgeist moment right now. The younger generations are really making connections between not just the struggles of Chinatown, but the struggles of Chinatown being symbolic for other marginalized neighborhoods, other communities of color, and other places who have been erased off the city map. We're connecting those struggles around, even environmentalism, against gentrification, making cities affordable, sustainable. All of those things are part of the Chinatown fight, and young people these days are also connecting, like the Chinatowns are working together to devise kind of strategies and tactics and ways, or to protect their communities, and to see how other Chinatowns have maybe found ways of combating whatever it is that they're fighting. We're kind of sharing strategies.
That's good. Obviously, you guys are going to coordinate so that you can defend the past and then nurture the future. I think that it's really cool, the concept of everyone banding together to save history and culture. I've been to a few Chinatowns. I've been to the one in Los Angeles. I've been to the one in New York. So it is rich with heritage and culture, great food, great stories, families, people that have been there forever and then continue to, go from generation to generation. So I also love the title of the film, Big Fight in Little Chinatown. I think that that's wonderful that you're able to utilize that for this project, and it is currently playing at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. Do you know when your film is going to be screening at the festival for those in Los Angeles that can come and check it out?
Yeah, it's going to be on May 7th at 7 p.m. In the cinema in Chinatown.
Very nice. So you're going to be screening in Chinatown. So if you're interested in the material, definitely go down and check it out. And we were talking before we started recording on the interview that you're doing a city tour. So I was wondering if you can reflect on that.
Yes, yeah. Starting last night, I guess we kicked off what we're calling the Coast to Coast in Community Tour. So it's a kind of tour where we're really bringing the China or this film back into Chinatown, including at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, which have really made the screenings so much anchored in the community. So there'll be a panel discussion with community organizers on the ground, and our film is going kind of coast to coast in various cities across Canada and some in the US as well, where similar things will happen. That there'll be local Chinatown organizers speaking on panels. Some of the screenings that are taking place, like in community centers or in shops in Chinatown, we even made a special version of the film that is subtitled with traditional Chinese subtitles to make it more accessible to the community. And really, because the film is conceived as, it's not just something to be seen, but it's something to be used. And it's so great to be able to bring it back to the communities that, gave us the stories to be able to make the film, so now they can use the film as a tool to kind of advocate for the change that they need in their communities.
Awesome. So I hope that people that go and check it out can utilize the information in the film to defend their city or to defend their culture, to defend their territory, and that Chinatown is preserved. So if anybody is interested to check out more about this as well, you guys are on Instagram. I did have the title at Big Fight in Little Chinatown, which you can see in the links below. So we'll tag that and showcase it. And I want to thank you for spending the time to talk with me about your film, which is screening at the festival, Karen Cho, and I appreciate your time talking with me on The Breeze.
Thank you so much.